Good afternoon. Today I'm here with Mrs. Jean Burns, who is a longtime parishioner of St. Paul's Episcopal Church and has served in many different leadership positions. Jean is excited to share her love for St. Paul's with you this afternoon.
Mother Michelle is right. I have been a long-time member of St. Paul's. I was confirmed by Bishop Reginald Mallet in 1962, which means I've been a member for almost 60 years, not quite. When my husband and I moved to LaPorte in about 1960, my husband had been raised in the Episcopal Church, I in the Methodist Church, but shortly after we moved here, we were living in an apartment on Michigan Avenue across from the Methodist Church. And one of the parishioners at St. Paul's with his family stopped, introduced himself to us, left his family in the car, which we didn't know at the time. They think they had 5 or 6 children, so I can't even imagine this. But they were on their way after church to see an afternoon matinee at a movie theater. And we had no idea that they were all waiting for him to take them to the movie. And we just asked him a zillion questions about the church and just kept him there in our apartment for probably close to an hour. Only later did we realize what we had done. But he was so persuasive, so friendly, so warm that we immediately began coming to St. Paul's, and which resulted in my being confirmed. My husband, of course, had been confirmed as a young child. We raised our 2 children in the church, and we became active members. My husband was on the vestry, as was I. He was in charge of the ushers. I directed the church school, summer Bible school, several years. I've been on the altar guild. I've tried to support the church in as many ways as I possibly can. And I think it goes back to, it even reminds me of when I was a child, because I remember when my parents said, you will get 50 cents a week allowance. And there were 2 stipulations. And one was that my church money had to come out of that, my Sunday school money. And before that, my parents had given me money to take to church school, but now I was to do it myself. And I was to save some. And so my first question was, how much do I have to give to the church and how much do I have to save? Well, they wouldn't answer me. Instead, they said, well, you have to think about it and you have to decide. Well, I thought about it. And I really wanted to keep all of it, to tell you the honest to goodness truth. And it was the first time I had money of my own like that, because usually if I got money as a gift, it had to go right in the bank. And so the thought that I had money that I could spend was, a real boon. So I thought about it. And so finally I made up my mind. And I said, well, I'm going to save 10 cents and I'm going to give 10 cents to the church. And when I look back on it, it wasn't very generous, not really. I mean, in percentages it was generous, but considering I had no expenses and I had nothing to do with that money other than, when I think about it, buy gum and candy or whatever it was I did with it. But it did teach me a lesson, which is when I had money, what the first 2 things I should think about. Number 1, the church, and number 2, to put something aside. And I've tried to do that my whole life. And why wouldn't I want to? St. Paul's is a beautiful church. It is where I feel closest to God. It is where I feel reverent. I feel the love of the congregation. And but I also feel joy. And it's a feeling that I don't have anywhere else. Another place I feel close to God is just when I walk in the mornings, but even then it's not quite the same as being with others and being able to worship God and to be thankful for all that He has done for me. As a consequence, I've tried my whole life to support the activities, the missions, all of the projects of the church, both on the local level and to support the diocese as well. So St. Paul's has worked hard at reaching out to the community, and that's very important to me. But it's also important to me to keep up the building just in the same way that I want to maintain my own home. And I think that that is the responsibility of all of us who love this church, and for those of us who we want to attract to the church, to bring others in, to make this a place that is welcoming and beautiful and well maintained. And none of that happens without money. It's just the way it is. And we want a church staff. We want a priest. We are so blessed to have Mother Michelle. And it isn't the same. Couldn't possibly be the same without a devoted priest and without a staff, without help. And so I urge everyone to take a look at what you can do. Think about what St. Paul's means to you, and please do your best at maintaining what we have and improving what we might have in the future. Thank you.
Amen to that. Thank you, Jean.
That sounds wonderful.